Welcome everyone to the second episode of the Shots podcast featuring myself, Gaz Choudhry, Mr. Wisconsin himself, Matt Scott,
Yo.
and Milwaukee Bucks #1 long-suffering fan, Jake Williams.
Hey, what's up?
Again, thank you for everyone that has got in touch with us, liked, shared, and generally interacted with the first episode. We really, really appreciate all of the feedback.
Good. Man. Yeah, I've gotten some good feedback from ballers I respect, from people in the sport that are close to it, and people seem to be liking it. And shout out to Steve Goldberg for writing it up in the in that FIBA column that he's got. I think it's called Wheel World. So if you guys want to check that out, good shouts to him.
What about ballers that you don't respect?
They stay out of my inbox for the most part.
Jeez, you're filtering the messages. Check your message requests.
Yeah, I got to check the filter messages for them.
I don't know if we could talk about the.
So
the
basically, if Matt doesn't respond to you, then what's that?
Yo.
You're messing with the brand, Jake. You're messing with the brand.
I know. Just kidding, everybody. Just kidding.
It's just too many messages, right, Matt? You'll get back to them eventually.
Oh, absolutely. You know, first come, first serve.
Can we talk about the messages we get on Facebook and social media that we were talking about a second ago?
I mean, we could get to that. Yeah. We could definitely get to that.
I'm getting spammed right now by some.
We can talk about this in another podcast.
Another one.
The creepiest message.
And then can we read the creepiest messages online?
Oh man, we should do like a mean tweet type.
Yeah, it's got to happen. It's got to happen. So, today's podcast is we got some requests from people that aren't necessarily wheelchair basketball fluent, but they love the game. They love the game of basketball, so they've asked us a few questions. So we thought we'll start today's podcast with just getting some views on what we think of the similarities and differences between the running game and wheelchair game. Yeah, so I think we could start off with that. I don't know if you've got any ideas, Jake, what you think about it.
Yeah. I got hurt when I was 16, so I played able-bodied basketball for a while. And the one thing I noticed right away when I started playing wheelchair basketball was that in able-bodied basketball, when you're good, there's pretty much nothing that the opposing team can do other than, fouling you like really hard or something or something like that, because they can't stop you from moving. And in the wheelchair game, they can physically stop you from moving. So when a coach diagrams a play or something like that, the other team, if they stop your ball handler, he or she can't move, and then what happens? I mean, that's one thing I noticed right away. You can't just pretty much just space out and give one guy the ball and say, "Hey, go score."
Yeah, I think the lack of like lateral movement for us kind of separates. Makes a big difference in the game. I don't think it makes it better or worse or compare contrast. I just think the strategy of going about getting to the basket is a lot different. I think our game is a lot about angles and a lot about teamwork and helping other guys get to the basket. Whereas I think the running game is all about that physically being able to dominate someone with your ability.
Yeah. For me, I think the fundamental difference is wheelchair basketball is fundamentally a 2-on-2 sport in offensive action, and AB is more, a 1-on-1 sport. So you can't run like in able-bodied, you can run like a 1-4 flat offensively, just clear out and give the ball handler space. Right. I think even the better 1-on-1 players in wheelchair basketball, like you are, Matt, or whatever, I think the conversion rate of getting a great shot on that, if you're matched up with someone of equivalent kind of standard,
speed and
it's way lower than it would
be. It's a bit tougher, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think fundamentally we draw help out of 2-on-2 action generally.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree with that.
As opposed to running.
I think I got a statement that a lot of people might not necessarily agree with, and I think that our game has more amazing moments. And let me because I'm checking your guys' facial expressions. But let me kind of specify and let you guys know what I mean by that. So if I was to come on this podcast and say, man, last night there was a guy who was 6'8", 240 pounds, came down running down the floor, did a 360 tomahawk jam. You guys need no further evidence other than me just telling you. Word of mouth, you're just like, oh yeah, okay, because that's what he's supposed to do. That the guys are doing things that they're supposed to do in running basketball. But at the same time, if I told you there's a guy triple amputee missing 2 legs and an arm, comes down full court, avoiding defenders, hits a game-winning 3-pointer to end the buzzer. I think that needs some video evidence. I think that's hard to believe, and I think that there's things like that happen in our sport every day. Our game is amazing, man. I love it.
Yeah.
You know what I don't like? That actually reminds me of something. But you know what I don't like? I don't like when we go to schools or churches and we put on these wheelchair basketball demonstrations, and everyone just kind of all-star game rules, we don't play any defense, and so it's just layup, wide open. I don't think when we play in front of a crowd that's beneficial at all, because they're just okay, he's fast, layup, wide open 3, whatever. I think to create those amazing moments, you need to play defense. So if I'm playing defense against Matt, maybe he hits a tilting, floater on me instead of just a wide open layup. Oh, okay, yeah.
I'm talking about in a regular game, though. I ain't talking about it in a demo.
I'm just
Jake's just mad. What did you guys have to do a school out in Turingen or something?
But that reminded me of something that I don't like that at all.
I mean, nobody's playing All-Star game defense in Champions Cup or the Paralympics. That doesn't happen. But I see what you're saying, though. But so here's the thing: is that those type of wheelchair basketball demonstrations are a way that we can showcase the sport.
Absolutely.
But I hate them when they're in conjunction with the running game. So I hate that. If you've got an AB game and then they give you at halftime, go out and demo the game. I think it doesn't do it justice at all.
Okay.
Well, most people are out of their seats at halftime. Anyways,
but even if they're not
getting drinks, so
yeah, and even if they're not, it doesn't translate because the nuances that you're talking about in our sport that make our sport spectacular,
right,
aren't the same as the nuances that make the running game spectacular to the casual observer anyway.
I got
you.
So
do you know what I mean? So I don't know, you could be watching an NBA game and as being an elite athlete, you may really, really appreciate, I don't know, someone like Damian Lillard down the stretch, not because of the shot making,
right?
But you may have an insight into how he's controlling the game or whatever decisions he's making. Whereas the average casual fan is still amazed by the shot making, right?
I agree with that, but here's where my opinion differs, though, is that I feel like our sport is in a place right now that anytime that we get a chance to showcase it in front of a large crowd and a large audience, especially a sports savvy audience, I think we should always take that responsibility and always highlight it at a good level. I think sometimes maybe it doesn't translate and it doesn't give the best comparisons or whatever. But I mean, somebody in that crowd is going to be affected by it, and maybe that somebody is the next person that's going to move this game to the next level. Because sometimes I have the feeling that our game is at a standstill, and I feel that I think we need to get it out to more people. I think more people need to see it. I think it needs to be more available to more people. The accessibility to people. Wheelchair basketball needs more of it.
Yeah, I mean, do you not think this is the most available it's ever been? Because I remember trying to find tape of 92, trying to find tape of 96. I had a cassette of the 98 Gold Cup semifinal.
Did they rewind it first? How old are you?
I'm old, man. Listen, shout out to the 30s crew.
Shout out to the 80s babies.
That's what I'm saying. That's what's up. But yeah, so now it's so much easier to access the game, just in general.
I agree. Well, I'll bring up another difference in the game that is definitely the more obvious one, is that we're overcoming different disabilities, and the classification system makes our game completely unique. And I actually love that about our game, that you have to implement different combination of guys, not based off of their physical ability. Well, yeah, of course, based off their physical ability, their talent, their skill, but you also have to create combinations of guys that meet that certain requirement for a classification. I think that makes it really, really unique.
I hear that. Because, like, for us, a layup isn't always a layup, like in the running game.
That's sadly true.
Yeah.
I mean, not for some people.
But, actually, I was thinking about this. So you look at it, like, in the running game, if you get to the front of the ring, that's a great shot. It's the point of the space that you don't want to give up, front of the ring, straight on. In our game, the amount of layups that are missed front of the ring, that the middle layups or the slightly off angle, so if it's not a 45-degree angle, because of the classification thing. The chairs going this way, with our classification, we shoot a much lower percentage because the shot isn't a layup as such. It's the degree of difficulty is way harder.
Because you're overcoming your balance, you're overcoming that center of gravity, you're overcoming, fighting through contact, and your balance isn't going to be the same as a one pointer going up with the ball.
So that's interesting. The classification is a big difference, you think?
Oh, I think it's a huge difference. I think it's a great difference because I think it separates our sport and it makes it unique. But it is definitely something that I see as a huge difference.
Yeah.
I mean, because in standing basketball, I mean, you just say, "Yo, guys, Jake, and 3 other guys go out there," and then if Gaz is having a good game, we leave him on the floor. If one of the other guys is not playing good, you sub him out. But you just sub him out for whoever you want to. In our game, you have to kind of, okay, Gaz is a 4.0. Let's find a 4.0 or lower that we can kind of fit our lineup around. And I think that that's a huge difference.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it brings coaching into play too, because sometimes your fate is tied with someone else because you two are of the classification that you can only be on the floor with each other. So I mean,
I don't even think that's a sometimes thing. I think that's a
all the time,
very common thing in our sport.
For sure. I mean,
no, for sure. Because with the classification, it basically means that there's an extra layer of variable on top of positions. So I don't know, like, if theoretically say me and Jake are playing the same position,
right?
But he's half a point less, and he's doing 90% of what I can do at half a point more,
right?
But because of that extra half a point available, you could put the second guy that you put on can cover up for the variable. So that extra layer of variability, I think, makes a big difference. But in saying that, the AB game seems to be going pretty positionless as well in that way. So
it's definitely switching it up. The game's changing, just like our game is changing. I think our game is evolving and it's being played in a different way these days, and I think it's continually growing.
So the 3-point shot isn't as much of a finishing play for us as it is in the running game.
Yeah, well, it's starting to be because the average player is better in the wheelchair game now. Like there aren't as many specialists that can only do one thing anymore. So I mean, I just think that evolves over time, and I mean, maybe,
I definitely think the 3-point shot is used a bit more in our game now, and guys can shoot it at a higher level, and not just kind of launch it up there.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of 3-point shooters around the world that I can name, and I think they changed the game because you always have to jump them, and if you jump them, it kind of initiates what you were saying with the 2-man game, that is really, really dominant in our game.
But that's the difference. But we don't ever get in our sport, even now, like even when the help comes, we kick it. It's not like we are looking for a 3 as a finishing play. So, like, for example, I come down and hit a 3. The next time I'm coming down, it's almost a given that whatever set we run, but if I threaten the 3 and I'm a recognized 3-point shooter, you guys will jump and it'll create action. And coaches still use it as that, right? So you think that like Turkey, who run a lot of horns play, which is just the 2 high screens, and they run it off of the threat of a 3-point shooter. But it doesn't. The sets aren't ending with taking a 3-point, and I don't know if that's the coaching thing or we just can't hit it at a high enough clip, or a philosophy thing. I don't know, but we don't do that.
I mean, I just think the game isn't there yet. Like, I mean, I mean, there's a time where the NBA wasn't like that either. I mean, in the 80s when Bird and Magic were going to the finals, they started their offense at like the free throw line almost, you know? So, I mean, I just think that evolves over time. And
I think our game is a lot. I mean, I'm not going to say our game. I think basketball is very read and react, though. And as you said, if there's a recognized 3-point shooter coming down and guys just jump and, they go to defend that player, it creates easier opportunities. So almost like, I mean, taking the three as a finishing shot when you've already created an easier opportunity, that's kind of a Goober move.
Doesn't make sense. Yeah, I get you.
Unless you're just like, I'm feeling it. I'm a recognized 3-point shooter, and I'm gonna continue
take 22 threes in a game.
I'm gonna continue to be recognized for this shoot. Sometimes, look at a guy like Dirk Passivant, or look at a guy like. I'm just gonna, let's just name him because he's a guy that I've played against more often. If he hits a three, we're gonna jump him, and he's probably gonna shoot another one, and because he's that great of a shooter. There's other guys like out there. There's Terry Bywater's out there. There's Jake Williams is out there.
Andre Bieniek.
There's guys who would just plug away, and I don't know. It's just a read and react game. It's just.
So do you think the classification plays into that? So, like, if you think about, generally speaking, the higher classification players are the ones that are running the show. All the mids are as well, more so. So I think that's still how the game is changing. But so your fours or whatever. So is it? And I think it is changing. But your 2s and 2-5s didn't have the range that your 3-5s and to 4-5s had, generally speaking, in the past anyway.
Disability.
That's what I'm saying. So do you think that plays a part in why that change is prevalent in the running game versus the AB game? The fact that, when I'm kicking it, for example, if I kick, I don't know, say we run, I threaten the 3, you jump, we run 2-man action. And if I'm kicking it to the court, so take, for me, I would say maybe the best point-for-point scorer in the world is my teammate at Great Britain, Abdi Jama, is a 1-pointer.
Okay.
Who can flat out shoot.
Absolutely.
Flat out score the ball.
Yeah.
In a catch and shoot situation. So he's as close to a catch and shoot type of player there is in our sport as a spot-up shooter. Because of his he's remarkable, but it's not like he spots up at the 3-point line, whereas in the AB game, those guys can just be that foot further out than he is.
For sure. Yeah. You need a lot more momentum. They're jumping, whereas we need a bit of a roll to, because he can hit those same shots, but he can't just sit there stationary and do it.
He can do it from mid-range, though, stationary.
Yeah, for
but
sure.
But not quite as far out.
Yeah.
You guys put Kyle at the corner of the 3, and he makes it off your horn set. So,
that's a whole different disability level.
Yeah, because he's speaking of classification. Yeah, but he's not a 2 because of spinal injury or anything.
That's stuff coming from the trunk. You're gathering momentum from your trunk. Whereas, if Abby's gathering momentum from the trunk, I'm telling every classifier I know.
Shout out Abdi. He's got that back crest perfected.
Watch him.
He's got that back crest perfected. He's using that thing like the WWE ring. He's bouncing off that thing.
No, I totally agree. That man has mastered his classification. He's definitely. Offensively, he's about one of the. He is the best scoring one I've ever seen.
Point for point, I don't think there's a better scorer in the world.
So yeah.
But classification is an interesting one. So, like, what do you guys think? Like, you made the point about Kyle. He's a 2 short, but he's not like a paraplegic 2. So the way he plays the game is changing the game. And there's a lot more kind of guys with their hand stuff, like that guy for Argentina. I'm real sorry I don't remember his name, but the guy who's literally got no hand who's the one. Wow, the stuff he's doing.
Yeah.
Oh man, that guy's incredible. Yeah, he's one of my favorite players to watch.
Yeah.
I was told not to reach on him ever because you won't get the ball and he will make you look silly. And I've seen it
that's
before,
not hard, Jake.
That's true. You know what I mean?
Guy with the Mickey Mouse mug.
Listen, Disney's taking over the world. Shout out
First
Disney.
Of all, you're talking about my defense, guys. The last time you played defense was like in the 80s.
When I was born. Listen,
I don't
offense
know.
is the best defense there is.
What'd you say?
Offense is the best defense there is.
Hey, I heard
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Like Steph Curry. Yeah.
So I've got a question for you guys. And this actually might, I don't know if it's going to ruffle any feathers, but I'm curious to wonder what you guys think, because I'm constantly sharing our sport with people I respect, people in other sports, elite level athletes, the people that respect sport and they want to see sport grow, and they're interested in wheelchair basketball, but they had never seen it before, and I'm constantly trying to just help them recognize what our sport is. And sometimes they hit a live stream, or they see a post of mine, and they see the team roster, or they follow it a bit more and they get really into it. But then they hit me with girls play? Like, you know what I mean? Like, does that ever happen to you guys? And if so, my question to you is, do you feel that the mixed gender makes our sport less relevant?
Well, it definitely happens, and you get this kind of feeling of as a male athlete, you get this, especially if you get asked by the male athletes, you kind of get it in that, girls play. And you get this kind of defensive pick, because it seems like it's like almost attacking your identity as an athlete.
Yeah,
you get that feeling kind of arise.
For sure.
It's interesting because obviously women get the dispensation of being minus 1.5. And then you kind of, as a male athlete, you explain to another male athlete in this very kind of macho athletic world that we live in. Yeah. And then you're saying, and then you go into this whole tirade about explaining the classification system and how girls get a 1.5 point dispensation.
Let's specify that rule. Let's specify that rule that women are able to play in the men's division. They just play at a 1.5 less than they would normally play had they played in the women's league.
Yeah, and I think it's amazing because I think it's the fact that the wheelchair is such a great equalizer that the women can overcome the physical disadvantages they may have. One, because the classification does that for our sport, which is the equalizing effect. And then the ability to acquire skills in a wheelchair does that to a degree.
Yeah.
But I actually don't think a woman could play, because women don't play internationally, obviously. And I don't think any of the women players could play internationally on men's teams to their classification.
Gotcha.
Without the dispensation. So the same with, I don't see it.
I completely disagree with you on that one. I mean, I definitely have, I can name a handful of girls. You know what? I'll do it. I'll say, like Becca Murray from America.
Do you think she could make your Rio team as a 2-5?
I think if she did. I think had she made the team, I think she could play as a classification.
No, I'm saying, would she be able to make the team, the USA men's team in Rio as a 2.5?
This current team, no. But what I'm saying is, I think that she can compete at that level. I just think,
for sure. We have club level, for sure.
That are better than her. So she wouldn't make it over Jake. She wouldn't make it over Jared. She wouldn't make it over Trey.
Yeah.
But even getting off of her, I think Amy Conroy plays at a very high level. I think Cindy from Canada plays at a very high level.
There's amazing athletes. There's some incredible female athletes.
Yitzka Visser is the best one in Germany, man or woman. Yeah. I think that they could all play. I mean, not all. I think there's a handful of women that could play at that level
without the dispensation. You're saying
without the dispensation, exactly,
to their classification point.
And I think the minus 1.5 sort of bothers me, because when you take a 1 point woman, it actually now they become a negative point.
Yeah. So 4 guys equal 15 on the floor as a result.
Exactly. I think when you start to look at somebody as a negative classification, I mean, that just you know what I mean? It just that. It gives me a bad.
Yeah.
Like I wonder how they feel. I wonder.
Exactly.
How a class 1 woman that plays, how do they feel about being a negative point?
Yeah.
I think it would be interesting to get a woman's perspective on this, on how they feel, and not just the 1-pointers, but all of them, how they feel being 1.5 less. And I mean, like you said, you can't be a negative on the court. So, but the thing is, a lot of the top teams just get a 1-point girl just for that -5, so they can put an extra big guy on the court or an extra speed guy on the court. And I think it's an advantage for sure to have that. But should that be should they be 1.5 less?
Yeah. So okay, here's the thing. So if I'm thinking back, and again, this may not be 100% accurate, but in the last 10 years, a club hasn't won a Champions Cup that didn't have a girl on the roster, a 1-point girl on the roster, essentially.
I'm gonna go ahead and back you on that one.
Yeah. And
yeah, I've been playing this is my 10th year.
Yeah.
And there hasn't been a team that's won in recent memory that hasn't had a woman on the team.
Yeah.
And
I've been
a part of 3 clubs, and each club has had a low point woman on that team.
And I don't think any of those teams, with the exception of Londil, I think 3 or 4 years ago when they won it, didn't play the girl as their primary lineup.
Right.
So there's been girl representation at all of those levels, but I can't tell you in the but I can't tell you a club that's made, say, a Champions Cup, the top 8 teams in Europe, or even as one of the great female players that we spoke about as their primary attack player.
Right.
Even with the dispensation. And to me, that is a problem, because the female players that are amazing attack players aren't really competing as attack players because of dispensation. And there's a whole disconnect between the great female players that are out there, like you named, and actually what's valued in the men's game, which is just its point dispensation. So I don't think it helps the women either, because there hasn't a single one. You can't name me a single one where the female has been a primary attack player for those clubs.
No, I definitely can't. And I think I guess a disadvantage to it is that, we have a classification system in place already. So essentially we're just breaking it. So, it doesn't start at -1.5. It starts at 0.
Yeah.
Or,
it starts at 1.
It starts at 1. I'm sorry, what am I talking about? Starts at 1. It goes from 1 to 4.5.
Yeah.
-1.5 is neither one of those. So why are we doing that?
And 4 guys are 15, which is a whole point more than 5 guys have to make in a Paralympic final.
Well, then it creates lineups that are unrealistic.
Yeah.
And we don't play those sort of lineups in the Paralympics. We don't play those sort of lineups. They're not natural.
It's not the same sport. I don't think.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. We changed the game a bit by bending the rules. Like if this is the classification, if 1 through 4.5, excuse me, man, 1 through 4.5 is the classification system, why are we breaking it? And I also think, I don't know if you guys agree with me, but do you think that it kind of puts the 1-point males at a disadvantage for getting on the floor?
Absolutely.
Sure.
I was talking to a 1-point male maybe last week, and he was thinking about coming over to Europe. And I said, "Oh yeah, man, like you shouldn't have a problem finding a team." But then actually he brought up the point that, you know what? Yeah, but ones are starting to get not overlooked, but they're starting to be looked at as more of a, like, we don't need you because we got this 1-point girl, and we can place a whole nother person on the floor because she's a 1.5 negative.
That's overlooked. Don't be nice. That's what
overlooked. Well,
that's what it is.
Maybe. Yeah, but now his options are limited because of the rule, because they're a whole point and a half lower.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but I would say Matt can. I don't know what you guys think, but I think because of this, it can be argued like the team that wins the Champions Cup is almost better than the team that wins the Paralympic gold medal. Not deep wise or anything like that, but the 5 they put on, because of the tinkering of classification, it allows stuff on the court. So, hypothetically, you could make super teams that you couldn't in the Paralympics as a result.
Oh, at least the lineup has the possibility of being stronger. I won't say which team is better.
Yeah, exactly.
But
it's a different tournament and everything
you have the possibility of building a stronger lineup based off of ability.
Because you could never play 4 giants, essentially 4 bigs in the Paralympics, so it's very difficult to. managed to
And
get four bigs.
I think
True
this
four
is
bigs.
quite. I think this is quite, a game changing rule in
Yeah.
European basketball, and I'm not sure why it's not more of a topic and why people
Well,
don't talk about it a bit
well,
more.
I have a question because I've never played in the Spanish league before, but I
Yeah.
heard they have a rule that if you're under like 21 or something, you get a whole point off,
Yeah.
no matter if you're man, woman, or whatever. And I know I would feel that if I was playing here as a 1-5, I'd be like, okay, like like that's an advantage for our team, but maybe not necessarily for me
Yeah.
personally trying to compete on my national team with the other 2-5s or something
Yeah.
or something like that.
No, that
So
makes sense.
yeah, so I mean, like I said, it would be interesting to get a woman's perspective on
For
this
sure.
and see and see how some of the top women in the world feel that way. I mean,
Yeah, reach out. I mean,
For sure.
clearly because we're the host, there's a lot of women watching this. So so reach out. Let us know. Let us know what you guys think. Honestly, do you? First off, question that I would have for you guys, so we can be specific about it is, do you feel like you as a woman, or do you feel like other women could compete at their classification? Two, do you feel like it's helping you at all in your development?
Yeah, because that's what it was about, right? So it's about the classification dispensation is to encourage clubs to play women,
For sure.
so help women's development. And I do believe, I think it's only in the States collegiate level that women can actually be part of a all-female competition regularly in the whole world.
Right.
I don't think there's a female league. I know
Yeah.
GB they've done a lot of work with women's league and stuff like that, but it's still sporadic.
Right.
The women's teams are still playing in sort of the second division in England to try and get, equal competition or whatnot
Okay.
in England.
yeah.
So
Yeah, but do you think more women don't play on a team over in Europe because their national teams are more centralized? And I know we talked about that last week, but I mean,
we didn't post
I mean,
it.
look at your national team; it is centralized,
Yes.
or your women's national team is completely centralized, and most of our women are in the States too. So I mean, I don't know
Because they don't
if
have the
that's just-
opportunity. So you take someone like
yeah,
I don't know. You take someone like Helen Freeman from GB, or
Yeah.
you take someone like I think was it Desi Miller who played in Germany from USA.
Does he
Yeah.
play
So
that?
you take those, you take those girls at that kind of level,
Women.
both great basketball players. but both great basketball players.
I mean, I'm just saying.
What are you saying, Jake?
I'm saying that they're women.
Right. And then, jeez, you made me lose my chain of thought. Anyway.
Yeah, right.
No, but girls, shout at us. We need to get a female opinion. Like we can continue that conversation.
Yeah,
I would
For
absolutely
sure.
love to hear what, especially some of them that are playing on the higher levels, the ones that are actually playing,
absolutely.
the ones that
No
are
doubt.
playing in the Paralympics. Even if those aren't the ones, I know you watch some of the other women. Who do you
For
think
sure.
could kind of hold their own
sure.
at that level
Yeah.
with their own natural disability?
Yeah.
I think it's a great topic.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that there's a lot for sure.
But on the classification point, I remember someone who I was speaking to. We had this conversation just largely about classification, and he made the point that there may not. So anyone that's a non-amputee that is quote unquote one of the better players in their classification, whatever that means, but is a better player in the classification is underclassified because of the way that we classify. I don't know if that's...
You said that's your opinion?
No. This is what someone said to me.
No.
I think there's some truth.
That sounds like a hateful opinion, though.
But I think there's some truth to that. I don't think it's as black and white as a statement like that. But
I'm kind of half and half with it because I do think there's a lot of underclassing.
That's because of the system, right? So we have a functional classification system, and
Sure.
And essentially it was done because the medical system was being cheated by some Paralympic sports in the 80s. So this truly functional 14-point classification system came in 1992. But within the functionality thing, I've always found it confusing, really confusing, Because what's
I think everybody does though.
and how it works. Because then I look at a guy like we were speaking about, the Argentinian guy with the one arm and no legs, and he's a one, right? The guy has one functional limb.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like one limb, and then you've got someone that is may have two functional limbs,
right?
A traditional one pointer, but they're also a one,
right?
You know, like how much does your core overcome the fact you've got literally no arm? Like you're playing a game which is played with your arm, with your hands, with one hand.
That guy is definitely overcoming a massive disability. Man, I would throw javelin so quick if I was him. Like it would just be like basketball just wouldn't even be like I'm not pushing in the circle. Not doing it. But he's definitely mastered his disability.
Yeah,
I mean
he's spectacular.
I mean, me and Jake, we just watched tape on him not too long ago.
Yeah. Oh, dude, he dropped 20 plus on us.
He came down and just pulled up a three like it was the thing to do. And I'm just like, this guy is just unconscious. I can't even believe. I'm telling you, man, I'll be the best javelin thrower there is. But I don't know if wheelchair basketball would be my thing. So man, shout out to that guy.
So classification is funny is the point, right? So like, what is functional? What's you mastering your disability? What's you figuring out? Like you made a point about Abdi. I've known Abdi a long time, and he's a one. When you see him in life, the difference between him as a one and how he's been able to master his wheelchair, master his craft, and overcome those challenges as a one, as opposed to, for sure, when you see him in a day-to-day scenario, he's a prototypical one in his daily life.
I also think when you're classified plays a big role in it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so my point being this is that when you if you're just now getting into the sport and you have the opportunity to be internationally classified at a time that you haven't developed, you barely know your disability, you're just getting into the sport. You like I said, you just haven't mastered anything yet. You haven't really got into it. You don't know how to maneuver your chair. Then you get classified. But then you play the game for 4 or 5 more years. Now you know how to control your chair. Now your functionality, which they should be classifying you on, becomes much greater. And I think that's where there's a miss. I think
so. There's some truth to that statement then, because it's only the amputees that are the more clear-cut classified players in that regard. So even when you're 12, in my first tournament, if I'm 12 and I turn up, they see me as an above knee amp. Okay, you're a 4. There's no, you know what I mean? Whereas,
I agree. And I don't like our classification system. I'll just go out and say it. Do
you think that the classifiers are able to tell consistently the difference between athleticism and disability?
Clearly,
no.
Not.
I don't think I can.
I was going to say clearly not, because you could see different examples across the board all over the world of guys that I think it's really prevalent between the 2.0 to 3.5.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, because there's such a big range.
And even 4s, they've been, you take someone like Kun Janssens, one of the great 4s of all time.
Right.
You could argue that he was overclassified, even as a 4, even though he was spectacular. I mean, he would fit right in that 3.5 range for some athletes.
Right.
So, those boundaries are hard, man.
Right.
Yeah.
I've just never really, I'm not so much caught up on what my individual classification is, but when you're being compared to other players around you that you see as just as able or maybe more able than you, and they're sometimes at an advantage by being at a lower classification.
Oh, it's everything.
That's when I start questioning the classification system, and I think it happens on a daily basis in our sport, and I think that there's no consistency at all.
So what's the solution? Do you think a medical system would be better? And do you think in 2018 that the resources are such that you could just have a medical system of classification? Or do you think functionality still works in our sport? It's still relevant?
Maybe functionality still works. It's just that it has to be looked at better. You understand what I mean?
But it's subjective, right? So, I could see you do a move, Matt, right? So, I don't know.
Right.
I could see you do a move where, you're coming down at pace. The ball is in your left hand. You bounce, stop, spin, take contact on your right side, jump off it, and drive with a power push to the basket. Now, I'd say there's nothing you've done there that a 4 doesn't do, right? I could say that it's because really you're a 4, but you're not.
Right.
It's because of, you're a lefty who's athletic, who's worked on being able to do that hour after hour in the chair, how your chair setup is. You've had, 10 years of getting your chair set up to a point where it moves the way you want it to move. And then it's a skill acquisition combined with natural athleticism and the fact that you're a lefty or you have big hands or whatever else it may be.
Right.
You take someone like Ahmed who's got one hand, but he's got a big hand.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? He can true palm the ball. So it makes it look like he's not a 1-5, but the dude has one hand. It just happens to be a big hand. Do you make him a 2 because he's got a big hand? No. do you know what I mean?
No, you make a good point.
Yeah.
I think that the criteria for classifications needs to be looked at more strictly, and there needs to be better standards. And like the criteria should be cut and dry. Like it should be very, very specific criteria, and it shouldn't be all this like case by case. I mean, I've gone to classifiers, and my complaint was, hey, so so and so is this classification, and I'm this classification. Tell me the difference between them.
So this will be interesting because you played as you're someone who played as a 4 in the Paralympics.
I played as a 4 for 8 years.
Yeah, internationally at the highest level. And then, so tell us what that journey was like for you to be able to, what you consider now to be your right classification. How hard was that after being made a 4? Because or whatever, I don't know why you were classified as a 4 to begin with. You'll obviously know.
That could go into a whole another 3-hour podcast of why I got classified as a 4.0, but I'm not even going to go there at the moment.
Yeah.
But here's the thing is that overcoming it wasn't really that big a deal for me because as I mentioned maybe a little bit earlier, what my individual classification has never mattered to me. I just want the opportunity to get on the floor and do what I can do. And if it's a situation to where I'm given this point value based on the people around me, I want it to be a fair ranking system to where I'm not at a disadvantage. I could definitely tell you at that point in my career I was disadvantaged.
Yeah. But to get reclassified, what did you have to go through? Like just to show like the sort of things that classifiers are looking at.
Protested. There were actually classifiers that came up to me often and told me that I should protest it.
Okay.
Before I did it, there was multiple people that came up to me and told me that I was wrongly classified and that maybe I should take a look at it. So I did have to, kind of go through like a panel and talk to different classifiers and had to show them video. And one of the classifiers from the States had to write up this really long report about, I don't have any feet. I don't have much ability to abduct my legs and
right.
There was just, there's all these medical
so it was but that's what I'm saying. So it's medical, but ultimately was it just a subjective thing?
Okay. Like, what's your question?
Hey, serious question. Do you think that maybe the classifiers are too close to the sport and maybe we should go completely an outside perspective if we're going to do the medical thing? Because I've heard stories of people getting classified, for example, and then protesting, and a classifier coming up to them and be like, why are you protesting my classification? Like, I'm right. Like, you know what I mean? So do you think that maybe they're too close, or if they're from a certain country or the coach of a team, it's a conflict of interest even? I mean, so if we're going to go medical, I think we got to go completely outside the sport almost and get an unbiased opinion. I mean,
yeah.
Because even the capping, right?
What?
Even like the capping of what you're saying makes total sense. But even
I mean, I just heard those kind of stories.
But how would you do it though? Like, you see, the argument against the medical thing is that you could just, I could just get technically a fake report, and be shown medically.
Yeah.
But that's so. Do you think in 2018 there is enough resources within the sport that you could have a central database of medical classification?
Right.
Or not? Because I mean, it definitely wasn't possible in the 80s, because or 70s.
I just think the criteria just needs to be a bit more specific, and it needs to be looked at with a lot stricter of an eye. I think the functionality of a classification, it should remain that. But if I have the same functionality as you guys as a 4, or if you have the same class, or Jake or whatever, I think it should just, that criteria should say so, and that's what your classification should be.
Because at the moment, so for example, like my classification, I'm a 4. And it doesn't matter if I'm functionally playing the same as a 4-5, because medically I'm an above knee amputee. So exactly. I could be, in theory,
So,
playing like a
so then
4-5.
we're just like blending the two criteria together.
That's what I'm saying. So there isn't a clear answer there at the
No,
moment.
See, I think it should be more medical because the functionality I think is too easy to get confused with the athleticism, and there's much more transparency now in the world than in the 80s. Where in the 80s, it's too easy to fake something. I mean, some guy bought a professional team without any money during that time. So I mean, it's just I think there's way too much transparency that if we do the medical thing, they're more liable to get caught now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're supposed to have classifiers at every tournament, and they didn't in Rio, right? So you couldn't. There was no classifiers in Rio, I don't think, officially.
I don't know actually.
My class is set, so I don't.
Yeah.
I don't talk to classifiers anymore.
No.
no
But
idea.
I'm saying so the problem with that would be that imagine GB now. We found some 4.5 double amp beast who can really play, or Patrick McCall, who may have hurt his back now for USA. You take him in the US team and fast track his chair skills, so he's good enough in the chair. And then in 2 years, you don't take him to any tournaments, no one sees him, and you have him down as a 1. And he's 6'8" or whatever he is. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So tournament time comes.
Yeah.
So that's the problem with the medical system. Is like you could have that much of a disparity in classification. Right. You could have a 4.5 that's you're portraying as a 1. Turn up to a tournament, and then what?
Yeah. I mean, I think it should definitely be said that, I mean, a misclassification by 0.5 or something could ruin or end somebody's career.
But
sure.
Yeah, but you don't see a misclassification of 3 points. Man, that's what you're talking about.
But what I'm saying, that could happen if you make it completely medical, is what I'm saying.
Who said that?
Well, because guys, we're saying if Patrick McCaw's a 4 or 5 and we protest him, and we put him as a 1, and we just bring him to a tournament that no one's seen before, that he's gonna play as a 1. Like you don't see.
He
that.
would though. What I'm saying is, if you say it's all medical, and there was no classifier in Rio.
Yeah.
There was no one in Rio that was.
So if you bring him along, is what he's saying. You can't protest.
Yeah. You just bring him in, and there's no classifier there to say, well, no, he's not a 1, he's a 4-5. So unless you have those classifiers in our sport, if it just became purely medical, how would you, in real time, deal with stuff like that?
No, we absolutely, I think, need classifiers, but you don't see a discrepancy of 3 points at most.
Because we have classifiers.
It's always a half point.
It's because we have classifiers, right? That's why we don't see it. What I'm saying is, if you eliminate because the thing is, in that scenario, if it's just medical, you've just found a 4-5 and you've got him as a 1. He turns up and someone protests and say, no, he's a 1. He's not a 1. He's a 4-5. And they say, no, he's not. Here's his medical. If there's no classifier looking at it from a functional perspective, how can you change that?
Let's just squash classification altogether. Open class.
Open class. I'm with that. I'm with it.
Let's do it.
No matter what.
I'm with it. But I think it's that time of the podcast where we hand it over to the Goober connoisseur over there in the corner, top right corner, Jake Williams. Hit us.
Hey, so what is a Goober? Because I think some people are unclear on that. Like what is a Goober to you guys? And I'll tell you if you're right or not.
I mean, in my opinion, we kind of mentioned like Donkey of the Day or Shaqtin' a Fool, where the guys on those particular shows kind of lightly poke fun at somebody that does something silly, like that's overly silly, and that is very foolish. But you're not really meanly spirited poking fun at them. You're just.
I mean, sometimes you are.
No.
Jake always is. He's a mean guy.
I think it's always good spirit.
Who's a mean guy?
Jake Williams is a mean guy.
But
don't let him fool you. Don't let him fool you.
I think a Goober is a specific person though that you're poking fun at, and just for fun.
Fair enough. All right, so the Goober of the week goes to I don't really know if there's a name for it, or if there is, I don't know it. So I'm just gonna call it reverse inclusion, because in America, it's the only country that we don't allow the able-bodied athletes to play in our league. Everywhere else in the world, Germany, Spain, able bodies can play in on a team and play as an athlete on a specific team. And in America, we want ABs to coach, manage, carry stuff that we don't want to carry, but we don't let them play the actual game of basketball in a league. I mean, the college division had it the last 2 years, I believe, 2 or 3 years, but now I just heard that they're taking that away, and so I think that's terrible that we're excluding an entire group of people just because they are not born with a disability or they haven't had some traumatic accident in their life, because we want the sport to grow and the people think it's really cool and they want to play it, but then we're like, oh nope, sorry, you can coach, you can manage, you can carry this box of tools, but we're not going to let you play, and I think that's terrible.
So wait, who's getting Goober?
Yeah, who's exactly?
Anyone who supports reverse inclusion.
So anyone who doesn't want ABs playing wheelchair basketball.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because I think that they should all play.
I'm with you. So here's a question though. Should ABs be allowed to play in the Paralympics as 5-pointers? Like, what level are we talking about here?
I think that the Paralympics, I'm not sure, but I think the Paralympics mission statement is something about having a disability. But I'm not sure if we want to go that high up, but I think they should. But I know they're not allowed to play in EuroLeague either. And when clubs have ABs in their starting lineup and build their team around ABs, I think they should be allowed to play in those Euro Cup games too. And maybe if the sport grows more, maybe we just say, hey, they can play in the Paralympics then.
I've always been of the opinion that everybody should be able to play. As I said earlier in the podcast, I'm constantly trying to introduce the sport to people I respect in sport, people that are either elite athletes or are big fans, or just people that I truly respect their opinion and want to see what they think about wheelchair basketball, because I absolutely love this game, right? And I think one thing that I'm always stressing to them is that we want people to accept our sport. We want people to view it. We want more people to come to the games. We want all of these things, but we isolate our sport to just the disabled. And if we don't allow everyone to play at every level and just see the wheelchair as the equipment, just as ice skate is the equipment for hockey, or or a bike is for a road race or something like that. Or a bobsled is the equipment. I would just say
you've been watching Cool Runnings, haven't you?
Wheelchair basketball, or in wheelchair basketball, the wheelchair is the equipment, and we would be really, really foolish to think that there's not able-bodied people already playing at the Paralympic level. I mean, maybe they're not considered able-bodied people. Maybe they have these minor disabilities.
Yeah.
If I have to throw names out there, I feel like I'm just kind of throwing them under the bus. But I honestly think that there's able-bodied people playing.
Yeah.
We'd be foolish to think that there's people that are not playing that have a disability, a very minor disability.
So yeah, that's an interesting, because we capped our classification at 4-5, right? So below knee amp is the same as someone who just blew out their knee, and which whereas if you allowed ABs to play, they could be in a classification like a 5, and a below knee amp is at 4-5.
Right.
In that case,
it's tough. But
should they be allowed? And isn't that so? Like amputees, like people don't realize in wheelchair basketball, amputees haven't always been allowed. It took a real battle to allow amputees to play.
Right.
So
I think we should kick them out too.
Kick amps out. You're out too. There's multiple ways to discriminate against your ass.
I forgot amputee.
That's right. That's right. Wow. I say no spinal bifidus and no amps. Matt's definitely out.
Put that on camera, because you're gonna get a bunch of weird messages now.
We need a biffer league, man. That's all. That's what wheelchair basketball needs. A straight up biffer league.
Oh my god! You should be able to call timeout for Biff FM.
Wow.
He's tuned in.
And he just offended a whole group of people.
I should give out the biffer of the week.
Oh.
Yo, but here's the thing. So on your Goober of the week, I mean, are we just specifically talking about a group of people? So there's not like we're not.
No, I mean, it can be. It doesn't have to be. Wait, are you talking about for this week or for the future?
No, just
for this week. But yeah, anyone that supports, or anyone that not only supports but purposely tries to keep the ABs out. Because I'll tell you a story that I heard over the summer, and I don't want to name drop anyone, but someone who is not involved in wheelchair basketball at the moment. They tried to they protested a bunch of minimally disabled junior kids, and they tried to protest them, saying that they should not be allowed to play at the junior level in America because of their minimal.
Oh, they're definitely a Goober. Name that Goober.
I'm not going to do that. I feel like
the Goober of the Week's getting real passive aggressive. I thought we were throwing shots.
Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't name people that you think are able at the level.
I'm not calling.
I would. I said I would. You said you wouldn't. But this guy sounds like a true Goober if there ever was one.
Absolutely. So I think people like that because I think the sport has grown to a point where if we want to promote more growth, then we need to allow those ABs to play. Like, I'll tell you another story. When I was an intern down in Kentucky with the Cincinnati Adaptive Recreation Program, I think it's called, run by Jake Counts and Ian Smith. Shout out. Hey, shout out. But they had a team in Cincinnati, but it was basically just 3 guys playing basketball, on Tuesdays, because I don't know if people with disabilities didn't know about it or weren't interested. Maybe they came one time and was like, well, this is just 4 people playing basketball. I don't really like this. It wasn't until that they were like, you know what? Why don't we just call the Northern Kentucky able-bodied team to come play? And then they had 3-4 teams that were able to play on that Tuesday night, and then then it became fun, and then more people with disabilities became aware and they wanted to play and stuff like that. So I think if we want growth in the sport, we need able-bodied. We need to include able-bodies in the sport.
I think we both agree with you. I just think that I thought we were pointing at somebody specific.
Yeah, that guy you sounded, I can't get over that. He's trying to not let he's like the Grinch of wheelchair basketball, man. Like, he's not letting kids play. Let the kids play.
I'm not going to call out names, but some people are just really salty at some points of their life. But
I wonder if Charlemagne stopped calling out names, if anybody would watch.
Exactly. You got to call names out, homie.
Well, okay. Well, when I get as famous as Charlemagne, then I'll start calling out names too.
You wouldn't get that famous if you don't call the names.
Hey,
the names come first, then the fame.
You would have called names in the first episode because you didn't want to get sued. So, I mean, what's that?
I'm not calling out the Goober of the Week, though.
Exactly. That's your thing.
True, but you were talking about a different subject last week. And
why are you deflecting? Listen, stop looking on the outside. Look within.
I'm just saying, if that's the tone that we want to say, that's fine. But I'm not going to be the only one to do it.
Sounds pretty passive aggressive.
Yeah, man.
When they were named,
sound like KD right now on Instagram.
When they're
do you need a burner account to do Goober of the Week?
What?
Do you need a burner account to do Goober of the Week?
I'm not Kevin Durant, man. I mean, when I'm not the only one that calls out Goober's names, then we can do that. But right now, I mean, that first episode, we talked in code the whole time.
No, we didn't. We were straight up. We just didn't say read the post.
One person.
So you're saying you can't handle responsibility of the Goober of the Week? Would you like to pass it on?
I'm saying that the host of the show should set the tone to what names that we are or are not.
We're name dropping all over this show.
You were name dropping.
We name dropped tons this show. You even dropped Perm in. So you got Perm. You said Perm couldn't run a wheel. You just Yeah, you shouted at Jake Counts, but said he was running a whack ass three people wheelchair basketball situation. You just put him on blast.
But then
like 3 people playing basketball. What is that? How do you even play? How do you even play?
You won't call out able-bodies that you say are cheating in the Paralympics.
I'm not saying they're cheating. I'm saying they allow them.
So what is that?
So if anybody's watching and they think that the Goober of the Week is awfully passive aggressive, let them know.
If
And
you
on that
have
note,
any Goober,
with Jake stressed
despite
out,
what these
we're
two
out.
say,
Later.
despite what these two say, if anyone has any submissions for Goober of the week, you can call names, you can call a group of people, you can do whatever you want. We won't say your name.
But Jake won't.
We won't say your name on the podcast.
Hey,
However,
we're gonna have to have a special burner person in like the full balaclava and mask on another screen, and really all it will be
I'm
like.
gonna do Goober of the week in a ski match. No one will know.
Yeah,
that.
no one's ever seen Jake and this ski mask guy in the same room, but it can't be them.
First of all, when we start name dropping in all our topics negatively, then Goober of the Week can start getting name dropped. But I'm not going to be the one to start. I'm not the host of this show, you know?
There is no, it's all, you know what I mean? It's a collective.
What you talking about? You're sitting in a chair with your watch on like you're the Godfather or something like that. Clearly, you're the host of the show.
On the point, Jake, where's your watch? I think maybe you should share that. Yeah, where's your watch? Maybe that story needs to be shared.
Yeah, I just got done practicing, so why would I wear my watch?
Oh, do you have a watch? No.
And
I wear my watch at practice just so everybody knows what time it is.
That's
buckets time.
Yeah.
Game time.
But yo, all right. Well, that's another episode of Shot Podcast, episode 2. We're all done. Please share, like, comment, troll, whatever you want to do. We appreciate everything.
Absolutely troll.
And yeah, and we'll catch you guys next week.
Follow us on Instagram and Facebook.
Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all that good stuff.
I don't have Twitter. I'm not on Tinder. I am.
You're definitely on Tinder. Come on now.
On Tinder. I would say it.
All
I
right.
would say it. Why would I deny that?
I don't know. I don't know why you're being you're just being real passive aggressive all the time these days.
Follow his farmers only.
I absolutely have a farmers only account. I'm trying to pull the wool over everybody's eyes right now. Absolutely.
All right, let's get out of here.
All right, later.
Much love.